Please welcome Chris Helman, Senior Editor, Forbes Media; Travis Bayer, Co-founder and Chief Technology Officer, Sound Agriculture; Rajan Gajaria, Vice President, Global Crop Protection Business Platform, Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont; Poornima Parameswaran, Co-founder and President, Trace Genomics; and Rodney Rulon, owner, Rulon Enterprises.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We're really excited to do this panel. Did you read the name of this thing? Emerging, Converging, and Collaborative Technologies that Positively Impact Plant Health and Farmer Productivity. That's a lot to live up to, gang. I'm so happy to have these panelists here, and we're going to start off by having each of them describe for 2 or 3 minutes what it is that they do and how it fits into agriculture today. We're going to start with Poornima.
Great, thanks so much for having us here. We are very excited. What we do is digitize the soil biology. Every tablespoon of soil has billions of microorganisms, and all of these microbes either cause disease, some of them cause disease, some of them are important for nutrient uptake by plants, so they are responsible for plant health, keeping them healthy. And what we do is every soil sample that comes into our lab, we have set up a scalable pipeline that creates a digital fingerprint from all of these microorganisms. But we don't stop there because that is not useful for anyone in agriculture. So what we do is take all of that information and make it actionable for farmers. And what that actionable means is translating it into what their disease risk is pre-planting, so they can figure out what inputs are best suited for each acre in terms of seeds, in terms of crop protection chemicals, but also in terms of fertilizers. Like when we look at the beneficials in the soil and all of the microorganisms that make nutrients available to plants, we convert it into functional capabilities of the soil to make fertilizer and biologicals available to the plants. So there's a lot of ways in which our customers are already using our technology to put the right inputs on the right acre.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You're doing DNA tests on soil, maybe the same way that we would do a test of our own DNA?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that's really where there have been a lot of breakthroughs in human genomics, in human personalized medicine, and we're bringing a lot of that innovation to prescriptive ag.
Okay, great. Now, Travis, tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, so, maybe it's first I should describe what we're trying to build, the sort of future of ag we're trying to build. And that's a world where growers in Indiana are routinely getting 400 bushels an acre in corn, 200 bushels an acre in soy, and they're using half the fertilizer they are right now.
Wow.
And those numbers, they sound big, but we know the genetics of crops out there can do this. The difference in those high numbers and what growers get today is the weather. So what we do is develop chemistry that enables crops to sense their environment, acquire water, acquire nutrients, respond to drought more efficiently. And so what we look like day to day is a little bit like a drug discovery company. So we're doing molecular screening. We start with a library of chemistry and basically look for how that's going to influence the molecular biology of the plant and how we can then get that out to the field to have much more efficient crops.
You're blowing my mind here. I usually cover the oil and gas and energy industry, so I'm relatively new to this. But what I understand from your technology is that you're proposing hormone additives to crops, right? To help them express these genetic qualities that are inherent within them, but might not have the chance to get out depending on environmental conditions?
Yeah. I mean, some of our pipeline is plant hormones, so it's you can think about it a lot like a human hormone. It's basically changing the physiology of the plant, and a lot of that comes through gene expression changes.
Okay. So we have pesticide application, fertilizer application. Someday we'll have hormone application. Rodney, you're a grower. Third generation, fourth generation?
Fourth generation.
Fourth generation. Your farm, Rulon Enterprises, has been going since, was it 1869, right?
That's right.
What do you think when you hear about these advances? Are these things that you're already using on your land? Would you consider using on your land?
Absolutely. It's really interesting, and you think it's overwhelming for you. You should be on our side. So as a farmer, I think it's my job to take all this and try and make money with it, right? Put it on the ground. As a fourth generation farmer, we want to be sustainable for future generations, right? So that's a lot of what we think about is both financial and environmental sustainability. So when I look at these technologies, they're complementing things that we have found in the last, well, really the last 100 years, right? So a lot of the things we're doing now, my grandfather did 50, 60, 70 years ago when he was in touch with what was going on in the soil. He would plant a diverse rotation, things like that, because he understood by feeling and touching the soil what was going on, what was in there. He knew from those different crops the hormones and things that they stimulated in the soil that made a better crop. He didn't know what was going on, right, so much. So for us now and what we've learned with technology and the things here today are just amazing. It's our job now to get back to taking advantage of all of that and moving forward to 400 bushel corn.
And you're not scared of these technologies. It's not like you're thinking this is going to create a Frankenstein in my fields. I'm going to let other guys do this first. I mean, how do you decide when it's ready for prime time? It's ready for your fields.
Right. So obviously we have to be cautious, especially in today's environment. You don't want to introduce something crazy, right? So you have to have a comfort level with the companies that you're dealing with, and have a certain amount of confidence, a certain amount of understanding. I'll give a shout out to President Mitch as a Purdue alumni, having been there and got a master's degree from Purdue quite a few years back. Everyone in our family has that history. We're not scared of technology, and we have the ability to understand and utilize it. And I think that's today's farmer. There is, of course, the old idea of the guys that are maybe from back in the 70s and things that were just doing what Dad did, and next generation was going to do the same thing. If you're going to be successful today, that's not what agriculture is. You've got to embrace the technology.
That's great. Let's hear from Raj. How does the work that agronomists like these fit into big ag? You're among the biggest ag, Corteva. Tell me about the ecosystem that contains both the biggest companies as well as these small researchers.
Yeah, it's the first thing that comes to my mind is, I know you think of us as big ag, but we are truly a startup. Corteva is about a $15 billion startup with a 350-year history behind us. So we've got the parentage from Dow and DuPont, but Corteva is brand new. And that spirit of nimbleness, agility, and wanting to keep innovation front and center so that we can take care of Andy today and his next generation tomorrow is essentially what Corteva is all about. And to do that, we truly need a way to collaborate, which is one of the words on your whole title, not only with our scientists, which we are very proud of, but also to keep an eye open for companies like that Travis and Poornima are working on, because they might have technologies that we might not have. So how do we partner to come up with ways where we can come back and, like I said, help farmers like Andy globally? We've got a strong footprint. We are present in 144 countries around the world. We do have a strong science base. We've got about 5,000 plus scientists across the globe. But that still comes back to the Midwest humility that we've got to be able to partner and learn while being very sure about what we here right in Indiana can start to do.
We were talking backstage, and you said that although you grew up in India, you've been a Hoosier for 19 years now, is that right?
That's right.
And you go back to India once a year or so.
Sure.
I'd like to ask, I want to get back to you on this, but I want to start by asking Travis, what is the potential that your novel chemistry could bring to countries like India, where they're still coming up the scale. They're advancing the tools that they use in their agricultural industry, but there's a long way to go. What could you offer them that they don't get now?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually got our start thinking about how to help smallhold farmers in Africa. So we've done a lot of field trials and work in sub-Saharan Africa. I think you have some similar conditions in India where you have low nutrient availability in the soil. What we see with our chemistry is that you get pretty radical changes in yield and efficiency. So we're talking about 50% increases in sorghum and corn. So I think there's some massive potential in the developing world.
50% increases because of the applications that you'll put on these crops?
Right, that's right.
And you put on those applications in the middle of the growing season or at the beginning or what?
It depends on the technology. Some of them are seed treatments, and some of them are foliar sprays that you can put on mid-season.
Poornima, what kind of help can you give to farmers around the world who are working with subpar soil? Do you think that you can unlock from these poor soils the ability to feed these countries?
Absolutely, and the way in which we think about it is all about, goes back to what inputs work, right? If you're not measuring the soil, if you don't have a tool to benchmark what the health of the soil is, what that disease risk is, how do you know what you're doing to the soil, whether it's management practices or the inputs, how are they moving the needle? Are they moving the needle in the right direction? And so we enable farmers to test their soils pre-planting, post-harvest, while they're planning what to plant, when to plant, what to order for the next growing season. And that really helps farmers optimize their input costs, while at the same time ensuring a higher productivity on every acre, so that delta, that ROI, is definitely higher for every farmer who uses our test.
And I don't need to be a gigantic farmer to benefit from this. I could be a smallhold farmer and...
Absolutely, because it's, at the end of the day, it's the bottom line for the farmer, which is what is the dollars per acre.
Right. Raj, what have you seen in India that makes you think that this would be beneficial?
I think the technologies that we are talking about here, I think it's only a matter of adoption, because about 70% of the farming in India is still subsistence farming. It's very different than what we see in some parts of North America, Brazil, Argentina, Ukraine. It's just pretty different. So I think the adoption of the technology is going to definitely help small farmers, because it's not a question of scale. You can do this on a moo in China or on 1/4 of an acre on a farm in India. So I think the adoption is going to be there. The challenge is on collaboration to educate. It's about access. How do you get people trained? How do they sort through all these different myriads of technologies? If Andy finds it difficult to do it here in Indiana, you can imagine how much difficult it is in a small village in Andhra Pradesh, in India. So I think that's the opportunity which we have to collaborate and do what is right by the farmer.
That's good. Rodney, this year you're looking at possibly a bumper crop, right? Because it's been raining a lot. In years of drought, say you're halfway through the growing season and you just think, this is going to be a really dry year. What can I do? Would you consider applying hormone treatments to your fields if you thought that it would help these plants that are already established to survive the rest of this really, really dry growing season? Is that something that...
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as I listen to these responses for us as farmers in the U.S. We've been blessed. 200 years ago, we had native soils that hadn't been touched. In many areas, I like to look at the marginal what we consider marginal farming areas, where productivity and things are not as much maybe as central Illinois or even central Indiana. But if you look at what's happened in the last 100 years with intensive agriculture, we've really farmed a lot of the life and things out of that soil. We've utilized a lot of what was there. We may be closer to a lot of what's going on in India than what a lot of us give it credit. So to me, I look at these technologies, and we're looking at the soil health movement in America right now is really the result of these marginal areas starting to see the result of soil degradation, depletion, and so we're looking at these things as restorative tools, looking at how we regain what we may have lost in the last 100 years of intensive production. So absolutely for us, when we're in a stress situation like a drought, that's when those things really come to the forefront, and we can see the effect on yield. So we've seen, we talked in the back about how over the last 20 years, really 30 years since we started no-tilling and focusing on biology, the reduction in variability that we've had in yields. When we do have those water stresses and that's a result of soil life, soil health, and so all of the different products that are offered to help improve that, and anything we can do when those stress situations arrive, whether it's an application or knowing what's going on, knowing how to help that system, is going to be a positive.
I think it's also really interesting technologies that are converting or helping farmers sift through the art and convert that into a science. Yeah. And there's a lot of democratization of technologies that were usually only available in R&D labs or in academic institutions or in large enterprises that are also becoming more consumerized through new technologies and new startups that are coming into the...
Becoming consumerized by the farmers, you mean?
The technologies that are going direct to farmers, so B2C, before technologies that would only be B2B.
Okay, that's great. My understanding is that the no-till farming, like what you do, was only really possible because of the advent of glyphosate. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, I'm just going with what everyone's been telling me the last couple of days. How important is it that we have another chemistry ready to go if glyphosate loses its effectiveness? I mean, you're working on a whole nother kind of chemistry. Is this even going to be necessary, or can we rely on Roundup for the next 50 years?
I don't think we can. We always have to innovate and have new chemistry. I mean, it's a continual race against resistance. I mean, antibiotics have this problem, herbicides have this problem, so yeah, we're going to have to be in this for the long haul.
Now, Raja, at Corteva, do you have all sorts of secret files with lots of different kinds of chemistries that could replace glyphosate? Are you ready for the next thing, just waiting for the market to be ready, or is that not how it works?
Yeah, actually, the word secret is kind of interesting. Yeah, I think data transparency is going to be one of the challenges of the future, because the first thing we need, all of us, is to gain a trust of the consumer. So I want to make sure that we talk that in the context of secret. So I think our innovation is transparent, and we are proud of what we do. That being said, related to glyphosate itself, yes, we have good technologies. Some of them are just waiting for approvals from China for import approvals. The trade situation we have right now is really a challenge, because until we get these technologies approved by countries that are importing the output from grains here in US, Brazil, or Argentina, we cannot bring that to the marketplace. So innovation is obviously a 10 to 15-year journey. It takes about 8 years, $250 million to get a new active ingredient to the marketplace. And to me, that time frame is when you've got to be able to be ready for what's going to happen next.
Right.
So we've got bright scientists who are modeling resistance, who are looking at what the challenges could be 12 years, 15 years from now. so that we can start working on them today. And we have done that for the last 50 years in both the legacy companies, and we are reaping the benefits today. But that being said, we are a startup, so we are going to have to figure out a way to do that faster, quicker, which is what we are working on.
Now, Raj, from the position that you're in, when you hear about these advances that they're working on, how long do you think it'll take for research to be turned into product that gets applied to the fields?
So our experience, and I don't want to talk for them, but I said it takes 8 years to start with an idea to get a product to the marketplace. And then it takes 2 or 3 years for adoption of the technology at a global scale. So it's about a 10-year journey, which is a betting on the come. You're going to think about what's going to happen in the future, and that's how we think about it. But the biggest challenge is the regulatory. But the biggest opportunity is also regulatory.
Yes.
What we don't want is technologies that are not regulated, and then for the farmers to sort things out. We are living in a world of misinformation. I think we were talking about it, right? You can go into a Whole Foods and you can buy a bottle of water that is non-GMO. You can buy gluten-free water. So if you're going to buy gluten-free water, if you're going to buy non-GMO water, in Canada they sell something called hot dog water. So there is a whole bunch of noise out there. So to me, partnering with institutions, partner with the government to get the right regulatory process in place takes time, and that's okay. Because when we get the product to the farmer, it needs to have passed all the tests. And so that's why, to me, it takes that kind of time to bring a technology to the marketplace. Can it be made quicker? Sure. Shortcuts? No. Efficiency? Yes.
Yes. Gentlemen, the elder gentleman here, what advice would you have for these entrepreneurs who are just starting out in their career? They're trying to build something from nothing. How would you encourage them or advise them on their path? Rodney, I'll start with you. What do they need to watch out for when they're trying to appeal to the likes of you?
Sure, it's been a fun journey for me since leaving Purdue 20-some years ago and now being an elder gentleman, apparently. So it's been a great journey, though. I've worked with innovative companies for 25 years and tried to bring products onto our farm. And really understanding of their product, building the trust and a knowledge base, right? So the companies that come to us with a magic potion in a bottle and don't try and educate us as to how it works, even if we try it and it works, it's easy to lose confidence, right, in a product that you don't understand or you don't know why it worked or those kind of things. So really that confidence in the product, confidence in the company to us for long-term use has been important. Of course, it's got to be economic, right? If we can't make money, we can't keep doing it, and that's increasingly difficult right now. But we're looking forward to the future with all these technologies improving that. So.
That's good. Well, let's take some questions. Any questions out there for this awesome panel? And anybody? All right, while we're waiting for that, tell us where you got the idea to start this company. How many years now? What was that eureka moment for you? It's for both of you guys.
I'll go first, I guess. So I was a faculty member over in the UK, and my lab worked on plant hormones and biosynthesis. And really, we just got interested in agriculture because the scale of the problem is big. It's foundational to civilization. It's foundational to our future. And we just really started thinking about what could we do with our sort of specialty of science to help farmers out and to radically improve yield, radically improve efficiency. So really, it was just being enthusiastic about agriculture.
You had to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Poornima, how about your story?
We started by taking trips to Salinas, which is the leafy green bowl of the US, and we went there a couple days a week, talked to all the growers that we could meet with, and everyone told us that the most resounding problem for them This was in 2014, was the impending ban on methyl bromide, which was a fumigant which kills everything in the soil, but allows them to put their plant in free of disease risk. But that fumigant was going away, it was getting banned, and in the wake of that, they were left with very subpar tools. Yeah. And so they were like, I want to understand the disease risk in my soil, and I also am interested in the beneficials in the soil. And so me and my co-founder, our core competency is on the tech side, the genomics, the data analytics, and we brought on board the right agronomy folks to help us translate all of this information into actionable interventions for the growers to help them make the right decisions.
That's good. Yeah, so you really saw that need and you moved to tackle it. Okay, were there any questions out here? Okay, we can keep going. What else do we need to talk about? Raj, what thoughts do you have at this point?
Yeah. One thing I want to share is about the whole idea of innovation and how you sustain that in a big company. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. So the whole digital business platform is new for us. 1 year ago, almost a year to the day, we acquired a company in California called Granular. And Granular is started off being a farm management system. It's not about making a farmer a better farmer, but it was about making a farmer a better business person. And so it's like you have a software which is going to help farmer manage their farm. That's essentially what it was. So move away from the yellow notepads, which are worked well for us for a number of years, more into a technology background using software. So when we saw that company, we understand what it takes for innovation to grow in a big company in a new business platform. And now Granular is wildly successful. We are looking at how it partners with the rest of our business. We are growing our offering on the digital business platform. We've got agronomy tools now, which marry up with software and technology. And the next generation, whether it is targeted crop applications, thinking about drones, robotics, biological products, how it can all come together as an ecosystem is what we are really looking forward to learning and continuing to do more of.
Rodney, if we went to your office, would we still find these yellow pads, or have you made that digital transition?
So, sometimes it is still easier to write things down, but no, we very much made the transition to a digital record-keeping system, and that certainly is beneficial. The access technology that we have today on the farm, it's incredible. That's been one of the big revolutions. In the last 20 years, we've developed tools that gave us the ability to do things, but now we have the ability to access those tools, all of the management information we have right from our phone, right from the computer in the cab, and actually make decisions in the field and do things that have an impact on our bottom line, and so that's tremendous for us.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you all for coming today. I think this has been just very eye-opening. It's blowing my mind, and continue the good work. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We will now take a short 15-minute break.